Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. Welcome to the G-Shock Presents Formula Drift Japan Championship. This is round 4 at OKUIBUKI Ski Park up here in Shiga Prefecture. I am Ryan Sage alongside judge and commentator Ryan Lantain as you see the drone bringing us down into this really interesting course up here in the mountains. Ryan, before we get into the judging criteria and everything related to this particular track, and as we try to get into what's going on here, nobody told us we were sitting. Let's talk about the season so far. We've had 3 rounds and 3 winners, and interestingly enough, it has made for a very close championship chase. Suzuka, we started off with Matsuyama. Ebisu, we saw Andrew Gray take the win, no surprise there. And then Koichi Yamashita took the win at Fuji. And that brings us to round 4 of 5, where the championship is very, very close. Matsuyama is currently sitting on top with 227 points. Yamashita 209 and Andrew Gray 176. One noticeable driver that is not going to be here this weekend is his Andrew Gray's teammate, Shang Nian, who's away on a personal matter. But let's see if we can bring up the track map, Ryan, and you as a judge and giving us some insights here as a commentator. Kind of walk us through this course layout and also some of the key points as we get ready to go for qualifying here today.
So this track is a little bit smaller than what we're used to, but it doesn't mean it's any easier. It's a pretty technical track. It starts off with an outside zone that is about a foot away from a wall. It's a big rock wall. It's kind of a natural wall that they had built here, and it can suck a car in because of the foam blocks that they put in front of it. So it is a tricky area right there. The drivers have to drive uphill towards it, so it's very difficult to manage the amount of momentum you need to get up the hill in drift. So once you've initiated, you need to kind of calculate, all right, I'm going up the hill at this speed. It's not a flat surface, it's an uphill, so I'm going to need a little more momentum than I would typically need, but you don't want to overshoot it either, because you're going to end up in that wall. If you undershoot, you're going to end up running inside clip 2, which is supposed to be run downhill. You can see it on your right about, where is it now? If you look to the right there, you'll see near the Valenti sign, that's the inside clip 2, but if people mess up their initiation, they run that as an inside clip on the way up the hill, which is not what you're supposed to do. Once you get up onto the flat part of the parking area up here, you do need to get close to a wall and throw the car at that wall, actually, as you rotate the car. So that, for outside zone number 2, makes it a little bit tricky. And the arc, if you're not running the right angle through outside zone 2, you're not going to get the right line going to outside zone 3, which is also on a concrete wall. And what we're seeing is drivers going shallow in outside zone 2 and then going really deep and offline before outside zone 3. So it is a tricky track to get right. And then from there, you got to be on throttle through to inside clip 2 and the finish line, which are marked by 2 big blue and white striped cones. And that finish line is right at the beginning of outside zone 1 coming up the hill. So this, on the surface, looks simple, but ask any driver here and they'll tell you that it's pretty complex and it's hard to get just right.
Well, this event is part of the Motor Games weekend, which means there's a lot of other things going on, including a really big paddock display with all the drivers. We've got freestyle motocross and a lot of other activities here. But besides that, one of the things that makes this course so unique, Ryan, as you kind of pointed out, is that we are going from a mountain road uphill over into more or less a parking lot as it is used during the wintertime for skiing and snowboarding. But as they go into that parking lot, they're actually driving over a bridge that covers about, I would say, 25 feet down to a ravine where there's a nice little stream flowing off the mountain. So it's a very picturesque and beautiful area, but we have seen a few drivers over the years get very, very close to those concrete walls that do block the ravine from the track.
And we did have somebody hit it.
We did have somebody hit it a few years ago. Yeah, we've seen a few wrecks here that have been pretty extreme, and as you mentioned, the most challenging part of the course is really getting the timing right coming up into outside zone number 1, but also going back down, we tend to see some contact as we pinch up towards that last inside clip. So you're taking a look out into the vendor midway where things are kicking off today. This is qualifying day if you're joining us wherever you are. This is the English broadcast. There's also a Japanese broadcast that you can find on the Formula Drift .jp website. That's the Formula Drift Japan website. And many different ways to view us this weekend. Lots of activities going on here. There you get a beautiful shot of the stream as we start to get our first drivers up for qualifying. Quite a few drivers coming into the championship this year. We saw a really big influx of drivers after our last round at Fuji, Ryan, where we saw near 60 drivers. It was a long and challenging qualifying, almost 4.5+ hours, that included some very dark drifting, so to speak, as we went under the lights in Fuji for the very first time. The next day we got a little bit of rain, but we managed to get the event done without having to go into the lights, which is something that we actually wanted to do, but we were moving pretty quickly because we cut out the halftime show due to the fact that there was a typhoon in the region, and it was better for us to try to get the show done than not get it done at all. So as everything settled there in Fuji, we saw Koichi Yamashita take the win there. And as we mentioned, we've got 3 rounds with 3 different winners. So the Formula Drift Japan Championship very much mirroring the U.S. Championship in the sense of just how close it has become. Now, this is a 5-round championship that will eclipse at Okayama Circuit just about a month and a half from now, a few weeks before Irwindale for U.S. fans that are aware of that schedule. And we will crown our champion then. No crowning of the champions here today, as we have almost done in the past, because we've just seen a few competitors, Mad Mike Wadette and also Andrew Gray, really dominate the championship. But this year in particular, we've just seen a lot of drivers come in and do very, very well, have their setups pretty well dialed in, and have given us a lot of really fun drifting to watch. So I think today we've got, it looks like we've right around that same number of drivers.
47 drivers.
All right, so yeah, and I think we ended with, did we end with 47 drivers after some of the knockouts and DNFs in Fuji? Was that right around the number, or were we still up past 50?
I think we were still up there.
Okay.
Yeah. But in terms of the size of the venue we have here, this is a lot of drivers.
Yes, a very tight, challenging course. Really awesome tandem usually comes from this venue because of the nature of the course. And of course, you know, in this beautiful setting that we are in, it's always very enjoyable. So there you got the start of a few aspects of the course, as we are hearing that we should be just underway getting the first driver up to the hot grid and into the burnout box, and that'll mean our first driver up for qualifying.
Very fortunate today, Ryan, to be having some dry weather. It rained a lot yesterday. That's a big thunderstorms the night before, so it's nice to see dry weather, dry track. The drivers practiced a lot in the wet yesterday earlier on, but it did dry up near the end, so they did get some dry practice and figured out how to get through the course. We have seen some drivers struggle a little bit here in practice. The droopy cars have been having a little bit of a problem. All right, so our first driver, which is Kazuya Bai. People know him as Chunky Bai. He's calling a competition timeout before his first qualifying lap.
Wow, that is very early to be exercising that, especially considering you've got another qualifying lap, and also that you only get 1 per weekend. So interesting call there by the team. And I assume that means we'll be moving on to the next driver. Looks like I got a note from our competition staff that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drivers that have decided to pull out of competition. So some names that you might know: Harutomo Tamanishi, he was in last round, and Tatsuya Iha also out this weekend, along with let's see, Katsuhiro. Nope, not what he is. Katsuhiro Megura, he was going to be our 3rd driver up. Looks like he has scratched as well. So a couple drivers not making it into competition.
Yeah, if they had been here, we would have had 52 competitors, but we're down to 47 now that they have pulled out.
See a few more drivers being released out onto the course in preparation for qualifying. For those of you familiar with the show, you kind of know how these things go. Qualifying usually runs about 3+ hours. We do 2 non-consecutive runs for each driver, which means we go from the lowest ranked driver or most recently registered driver to the #1 driver, which is Masuyama right now, and they will receive a score for their first qualifying run, and then we will start back at the top again and do that second non-consecutive run, and then from there we will peel off the top 32 drivers into tomorrow's competition. Tomorrow's competition on Sunday broken up into 2 segments. The round of 32, then we do a halftime break, and then we get into the main show, which is the top 16. All the pomp and circumstance and opening ceremonies, national anthem, all that fun stuff. So Ryan, you are joined here today with your 2 other judges that are part of the FD Japan judging staff, Andy Yen and Robbie Nishida. We had Brian Eggert last round, so Andy Yen is back this round, and Robbie Nishida also serving as part of the commentary team for the FD Japan live stream. All right, here we go. Looks like we are ready to get things underway. Kazuya Bai, car number 81 on Goodyear. He's in that RPS 13 180X, and he will be our first driver up.
180 SX, right?
SX, correct. Uh-oh. Maybe that's why he called this competition timed out. Did he just stall?
I'm not sure what's going on down there.
All right, here we go, underway. Leaving the chicane, heading up. Third gear initiates right before that third standing cone, so early initiation, tries to reach out wide to that outside zone. Here's the first inside clip. Here's the second outside zone, up against a wall. He's going to over-rotate, and he is going to come incomplete. So right there, that was just about halfway through that second outside zone before he would leave there and get to the third outside zone before pushing down the hill. Ryan, what happened there? Looks like he just got a little overextended.
Yeah, just over-rotated the car, made a mistake. We've seen a lot of that in practice as well, not necessarily in that area right there, just throughout the course, just getting a little bit too aggressive, maybe on the transition, not comfortable with what they're doing. Maybe nothing has changed today. Everything's kind of stayed the same all morning. It's not like we've had a change in track condition, temperature, or anything like that. So just have to chalk that up to either nervousness or a moment of inattention.
All right, so 1 run in the books, and it's going to be an incomplete. So unfortunately, that'll be a throwaway for Chunky Bai. And we will move on to our next driver, which, according to my list here, is Yukio Fausto in the S15 Sylvia, but we'll see if he gets to the line. And it looks like Bai was actually wanting to get off course right away, so something may be actually wrong with the vehicle. Just out of sight of the camera here. He went off course and back to the hot grid. So we'll move on to car 555, Yukio Tarumi. So, okay.
No, it should be
him.
Fausto.
Yeah, so, okay.
That's the wrong name. That is definitely Fausto.
All right, here we go. Fausto, first, second, third, initiates just a little bit lazily right there at that third standing cone. On throttle to that inside clip, tries to snap out here to the second outside zone. He's also got big angle, but he's going to pull some out. He's going to leave that second outside zone early, and that does not allow him to get fully into that third outside zone, just a bit wide on that final inside clip. But we do have our first complete run there, Ryan, and another driver struggling with that second outside zone to try to link that to the third outside zone.
Yeah, so Fausto, this is a new car for him. He part of that sideways experience up at Ebisu, and he's been showcasing that car online. They've just got it done. It looks like he's getting pretty comfortable in here today. You can see he's close to that inside clip. Over-rotates at that outside zone, but manages to get back on throttle. So he's going to lose points there for that zone on line and angle, and commitment as well for the style side of things. But he's going to get a score, it looks like.
And just a reminder for everybody online, you guys have definitely given a lot more consideration to that first outside zone. How did he do there overall.
Yeah, he definitely needed to get deeper there in that zone. You can see an outside zone 2 as well, not in the box either. So definitely losing some points there. You got to get up on that wall at the next outside zone, number 3, sorry, and was off on inside clip as well. So he's not very accurate throughout this run. And of course, he had that stall up and over rotation as well. So the score will suffer for sure.
And because in qualifying we have the track broken up into sectors, you guys have that first outside zone, basically double points for both line and angle at 10 points there for that first section, 5 points for line and angle at every other section, and I believe we have 5 overall.
Yep, that's right.
And of course 40 points goes to style. And Ryan, you are doing line. Who's doing, let's see.
Andy's doing angle,
and
Robbie's doing style.
All right. Yeah. So there we go, 57 for Yukio Fausto. He will log a score in the book, but probably one that he will want to get rid of. And we'll move on to our next driver here. Yukiko Ishiguro. One of our 2 or 3 females in competition here this weekend in that S15. Let's see how she does on her first run here. Heading out through the chicane. Good little snap initiation there. Big angle. We're going a bit too deep. Oh, but she gets out of it okay. Just takes out those clipping points or the clipping zone markers. And you can see the bumper dragging here, but not too shabby. Just a little bit messy, but was certainly getting very close to that first outside zone. A high-risk maneuver. She'll carry the bumper with her back down the course, but she will receive a scored run. Let's take a look at this, Ryan, one more time. Walk us through here how Yukiko did on this first run.
That was a high level of commitment going up the hill. You can see she initiated well. Like you said, a good snap to initiation. She was right on the line at the beginning and just overstepped it slightly. So she could have been a little bit more precise there, but dragging that bumper through the course hasn't really affected her other than a little slight bobble there on angle just before outside zone 3. But overall, she's doing a pretty great job. Very committed. As you can see, she's on throttle. She's not really making any corrections in terms of her pace throughout the course. We told them that you need to maintain your pace throughout the course. There are no real aggressive slowdowns here. There should be a couple of areas where you maybe get the speed dialed in a little bit, but other than that, you should be on throttle, maintaining pace. Yeah, you can see there a slight deduction in angle, and she gets it back to angle again, and not too bad on that inside clip through the finish. So overall, a pretty solid run.
All right, so waiting for scores to drop here as Yukiko Ishiguro, representing Real Style in that S15 Sylvia, starting it off pretty decent here. And an 82, so very well received from both the line and style judge. Angle judge dropping down about 7 points, but a good start for her, and that will most likely be a keeper. The trend that we've seen this year, Ryan, is usually mid to high 70s is where you kind of more or less want to be in a field of about 50. So we're at about 45 now, roughly, and that will certainly get her in the ball game.
The Japanese commentators seem pretty impressed with that as well, judging by how they reacted to the score coming up.
Hiroki Vito, seen him before. First run out, snaps it in. Oh, has to pull a little bit of angle out. Now he's back on throttle, whipping through this first inside clip, transitioning back around, and does fill that second zone pretty well, starting to float it out to that outside zone, right up against that wall. Good angle coming down the hill, keeping the throttle on, and he'll unwind it just past the finish line. So 2 pretty good runs there back to back. And Ryan, we know that there are no real marked decel zones in this area, but you guys want to see the drivers pretty much committed throughout the entirety of the course with no real slowdowns. He did have that little bit of a correction as he pulled some angle out near that first outside zone and didn't fill it as probably as well you'd like, but did a much better job on outside zone 2.
Yeah, he looked pretty settled. The only thing his commitment going uphill is the one thing that I didn't really like. He wasn't fully on throttle. Once he got the car to angle, there was a hesitation, there was a slowdown there. And if you compare that to the previous run from Ishiguro, where she really threw the car at the wall, big difference there. So Vito ends up with a score of 75.
7-5 for Hiroki Vito. All right. Ryohei Kitao. We don't see too many laurels out here. This is the first one in competition. Taking that wide swing approach. Snaps it in. He's going to fill that zone pretty well. Back on throttle here into that inside clip. Good angle being carried around. Looks like some pretty good precision here on both the first and second outside zone. Let's see how he carries it around. Right off the rev limiter as he finishes up his run. And line-wise, Ryan looked really solid there. Not really sure how you want to pick that apart. I'll give you a few seconds to jot your scores in there. But overall, I think we saw a pretty good bit of driving there from Ryohei Kitao.
No, it looked pretty solid. Going up to outside zone 1, you could see that he hit both markers for outside zone 1, the outside markers there. But I think he kept his tire inside the course. Outside zone 2, hit the marker there as well. Did a really great job. Got close to the wall at the beginning of outside zone 2. And going through 3, dropped a little bit of angle there, but that's kind of par for the course through that area. We're looking for them to maintain angle, but the majority of people are dropping a little bit through there. So he ends up with a pretty solid score.
So some of the newer drivers or newly registered drivers actually kicking off this first run in pretty solid fashion here. Looking pretty good overall. An 85 for him. And we missed these next two drivers last round, James Ting and Hubert Lee, but they are a regular fixture in the Formula Drift Japan Championship. James will be our first driver up. That's obviously his old graphic. He's not in the BMW anymore. Sliding it in. He's going to go a bit wide. Oh, and he's going to make contact with the wall there. And luckily for him, those big pads saved the car. No noticeable damage from this side of things, but it will be an incomplete. Ryan, looks like the aspect that you mentioned, just getting the timing right, was a big factor in going into the wall here.
Yeah, that's right. You could see it dented the rear quarter, well, not the rear quarter, but the rear behind the rear wheel where he went into the wall. And you could just see the difficulty here with the timing. Ishiguro, when she threw the car in, she was on the absolute edge of what she could get away with, but James just went just over the edge slightly. We've seen a couple of people go way over the edge and hit that wall pretty hard. Fausto hit it in practice on the first day pretty solidly, and this was a hit that he's going to get away with. You know, he's not going to have to go fix much on the car, if anything at all, and he'll be able to get out for his second run. But of course, it's going to put a little more pressure on him for his second run.
All right, so an incomplete for James Ting, his teammate in the RSR TRC NZ686. This is Hubert Lee. And he will take the first run of his qualifying session right now.
Hubert was looking pretty strong in practice. He's had some confidence issues in the past, but his practice yesterday and today, he was looking very confident, throwing the car. He actually got into a couple of tandem practice laps, and he was getting close, mimicking the lead driver really well. So it's really good to see him getting more comfortable in his car and coming to terms with the track that we have here as well.
Yeah, very similar setup here schedule-wise compared to what fans are used to back home. We've got a 4-hour practice on Thursday. It's broken up into different categories, but we did have some rain yesterday, so let's see who. Oh no, oh no, oh no! And a much harder hit this time. The back pushes out immediately, and two drivers back-to-back from the same team. A miscalculation, and Ryan, that was a much tougher hit there. Let's take a look at this again.
Yeah, you can see he came in quite a bit over the speed that he should have been going there at initiation. Maybe if he was going that fast, maybe he should have initiated a little bit earlier, but that is going to make a pretty significant mess in the rear of that vehicle. You can see he made contact with the rock, kind of got between the pads, so right there, went right between, and he aimed pretty well for the area where there was no pad. So that was a direct hit with a big rock, essentially, a big chunk of rock that does not move at all. There's zero give there, unfortunately.
And it's very uneven surface, obviously. Big granite wall there that is just protected by those big yellow pads that are essentially really tough foam. But Hubert, unfortunately, got right in between it and sustained some damage to the vehicle.
The good thing is that the pad absorbed the front of the car. So typically what we see is with a wall hit is the back will hit and then the front comes around to slap the wall. Typically, the car's at angle at that point and will damage a lot of the front suspension pieces, but hopefully that didn't happen here.
All right, we're getting the call here to take a quick commercial break as we clean up the course. This is the G-Shock Presents Formula Drift Japan Championship. This is round 4 at OKUIBUKI Ski and Snowboard Park. We'll be right back with the rest of qualifying. All right, and we're back here at the G-Shock Presents Formula Drift Japan Championship, round 4 at OKUIBUKI Ski and Snowboard Park. Interesting turn of events here, Ryan Lantane, as we saw some pretty crazy happenings there between James Ting and Hubert Lee, not in tandem, but back-to-back going into the wall, and Hubert getting the tougher of the 2 hits, sustained some pretty good damage, popped the radiator, and that is what you see going into cleanup on aisle 7 over there. So unfortunately, a tough break for those 2 drivers. Hopefully they have at least a spare radiator. That's what we heard down from the competition staff, that is going to at least be needed to fix Hubert's vehicle. And James, more superficial damage, and was able to kind of stay away from the wall and not hit it so aggressively. But you see what we're dealing here on site, Ryan, and some of the challenges that you mentioned with that first outside zone.
Yeah, this could not have happened in a worse area. Now we've got cars flying up the hill, trying to maximize the line on outside zone 1 and not overshoot, and now we've added some dust basically there to that area. So I don't know what we're going to do. We haven't really spoken to the tech guy yet in terms of getting somebody to go over there and clean that up somehow with their car, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Right now you can see them still trying to clean it up. Hubert did sustain quite a bit of damage to, like you said, the cooling system. He also sustained damage to the rear suspension on that car and the front as well. That soft foam block clearly saved it from worse damage, but didn't save it from all damage. So he will have quite a big repair to make on the car in various different areas of the car. So it's not like they can just focus on one spot, fix it, and go out. They have to first try to get that radiator fixed. I imagine the rear of that car is crunched up pretty bad, so trying to maybe round it out a little bit so they can fit a radiator in there, and then get everything plumbed up again and fix the suspension, get it aligned. There's a lot to do between right now and his next qualifying run, which is in about, what do we have here, 30 some odd cars to go before we come back around. We do have 47 cars total, so essentially another 46 cars have to go for him. You know, that's the amount of time he has to fix the car. So see if he's able to do it. Here's the run again as he comes up the hill. You're going to be able to, you'll see him come in there with quite a bit of speed, and makes quite significant contact with that big rock wall that's over there. Like we said earlier, that wall does not move at all. It does not give one bit. We've seen other cars hit it in previous years, and they've made a pretty big mess of their car. You know, even if you hit one of these concrete blocks, sometimes you can get it to move, rotate a little bit, slide out of the way, which will absorb a little bit of the impact, but that wall does not move at all. So that damage is being, you know, all the force of that impact is being directed at the chassis. So fortunately, a lot of water spilling on the track, and they deemed sawdust better than rain or water, let's say, on the track. You know, maybe the water could have dried up on its own pretty quickly, but we've got a lot of dust down there now, so we're going to have to deal with that before we let cars go on track.
8:32 in Los Angeles, 12:32 p.m. local time on Saturday mid-afternoon here at OKUIBUKI Ski and Snowboard Park, where we've made our home for the past few days. This is quite an interesting area. We stay in a dorm up here and never really leave the premises except for a few runs down to the city about 35-40 minutes away for supplies, more or less. You know, kind of camping during the weekend. Yeah,
we go down to get ice cream mainly, sometimes ramen. the 2 staples of the Formula Drift Japan staff.
Outside of that, we are pretty much here up in the mountains, and everybody gets up early because of jet lag, and we go explore and try to make the most of it. But we are pretty self-contained up here, and it's been drifting and wilderness and outdoors since Thursday. So, but now we are in the midst of competition. This is qualifying, trying to whittle down the field of just over 50 drivers down to 32, and we had 2 back-to-back wrecks into one of the more challenging parts of the course between with James Ting and Hubert Lee. So they will both be sitting on incompletes. And as we finalize this cleanup, we'll be able to move on to our next driver, which should be Shuichi Mano in the S13. I thought I saw him there. Car 666 sitting at the light. There he is.
He may be sitting there for a little while longer, right?
He may be. A couple pretty mid-level to high-level scores, mid to high-level scores from some of the newcomers. 85 is our current highest score right now from Ryohei Kitao in that C33 Laurel, which we don't see too often here. And it does look like track staff are slowly but surely getting to the point where we'll be able to move on into competition. Last thing we want is a bunch of sawdust flying all over. But now that they've made that decision to do it, kind of more or less committed to drying everything up and then getting it off of the course as best as they possibly can.
This is some riveting footage, Ryan.
Yes, very exciting. I love seeing people with the witches
broom.
Witches. I wanted to say Wicked Witch of the East broom. Yeah. I'll get you, my pretty. That's what it reminds me of when I see them at the stores. But they are very functional. They work very well.
Yeah, they seem to be. Kevin has his green one, though. That looks like a traditional, or not traditional, but more modern broom.
Yes.
As opposed to the traditional dried hay-looking broom. They've paved a lot of extra pavement here, Ryan, and it makes me wonder what we can do differently here sometimes, you know? We've had some videos posted from the likes of Yokoi driving on a new section at the back of the course where there are some large concrete barriers lining this downhill slope. If you look on Yokoi's social media, you'll see a video. It looks pretty cool back there.
Yeah, if you'd like to propose a new track layout, which we are certainly thinking of as well, get onto Google Maps and you'll see maybe the latest rendition of the new pavement, and draw us a nice track, send it to us.
Yeah.
info@formuladee.com. We'll definitely take a look at it. But there is now at least one or two potential new configurations up here, which could potentially open up the speeds a little bit.
If you watched Hyperdrive at all, watching Hyperdrive as we've been doing the last couple of nights, Atsushi Taniguchi, who has competed at Formula Drift Japan in the past, was on that show, and they showed him at his drift school, which is actually in that parking lot straight across where the paddock area is. So this is where he does a lot of his instruction for drifting in the area here, and he's laid down a lot of rubber, so you can see that he's using that new lot, and also the ramp coming down from the upper lot was used by Yokoi. So it's some cool stuff that we might be able to play around with here. So if you watch those videos, you'll be able to see what it looks like and give us some ideas.
Taking a look at the early competition recap here between some of the drivers so far. We are about 8 drivers in with just about 40 left to go as we attend to the cleanup here. So far, our highest qualified driver is Ryo Kitao, and following him is Yukiko Ishiguro, one of 3 females in competition here this weekend. So a few good scores starting it off, a couple incompletes, and of course, obviously, we have the competition delay here with the 2 wrecks.
Any emails flowing in yet, Ryan, of track recommendations?
Not
I
yet.
figured people would be pretty quick on that. Get on the old Photoshop, drop a little map. I use Keynote myself, but, you know, up to you what you want to use to make a map. So we have a couple old school cars here. We have this Laurel, and then we have an R31 Skyline as well. I love seeing those two go out there on the track. I know a lot of people have been posting or commenting on my post about the R31. It's a pretty cool car. That R31 house, Robbie was filling us in a little bit about them. They go out and buy every and all R31 that they can. Apparently they have about 700 R31s in stock at their property, and they sell all the parts that you can possibly imagine for that car, and cars as well. They kind of have a hold on the market here in Japan and internationally as well. So if you're into the R31 market, check out R31 House. They're sponsoring one of the cars here. They seem to have a pretty good handle on what those cars are all about.
There was the first wall tap, just a bit more than a wall tap, by James Ting, and here's Hubert. This is what got us into the situation that we are now. Carrying a lot of speed. He knew that he was carrying a lot of speed, put quite a bit of angle into the car to slow it down, but it was not enough. Saved the front end of the car, but damaged the rear end pretty extensively and also popped the radiator, which, if you're just joining us, is the reason why you see those people doing that. So it looks like a majority of the staff starting to move their way off. We see our competition director down there for both Formula Drift Japan and also Formula Drift USA, Kevin Wells, making his way off course. And hopefully we will get the signal that we will be good and ready to go. We have seen situations like this where they may want to ask a driver that has yet to go or somebody to go and test the surface there, but it is water, so this is not a St. Louis situation where no matter how much you clean it on the first, second, and third rounds of oil down, that it's still potentially going to be slick. So I think it'll probably be okay, but we'll see what the call is. So Formula Drift Japan, known for being so fast and efficient, has put us into a nice little interesting
lull
here.
Yeah.
There's quite a few words for it, but lull will do. Here we go, Ryan. Looks like we got action underway here. And I want to know if this was an official run.
Yes, it was.
And it looks like we are getting the thumbs up there. So this is Shuichi Mano just leaving that third outside zone. A little bit of an e-brake pull there as he hits that final inside clip. And we are back underway. So Ryan, after a little bit of delay, we're back on action here.
Yes,
Shuichi Mano, give us your take on his first run.
Pretty brave going in there with that stuff down on the ground. Right on the line there, did a great job in outside zone 1. Nice and close to inside clip 1. Could have been tighter on outside zone 2 near the end of it, but early on did pretty solid. Nice job there on outside zone 3. And just slightly off inside clip 1, just by a small margin. So overall, great run, pretty smooth. We're going to get a good bird's eye view now to see exactly what was going on, because as we know, this bird's eye view is ever so helpful for us and for the fans at home as well. So watching him come around there, you can see slight deduction in angle, but gets back pretty quickly. Right here, nice and consistent through outside zone 2. Outside zone 3 is where we typically have a slight deduction in angle, but he was very smooth with it. And then nice job down to inside clip number 2.
All right, so waiting for scores to drop here for Shuichi Mano.
All the scores are in, so just waiting for the screen to pop up.
And there it is, an 82 for 666. Shuichi Mano So a good run for him. That should be right at the marker from what we've seen so far. But then again, I can imagine the scores may go much more northward on this track. But let's find out. We went from 666 to 777. Went from darkness to light, Ryan.
Yep.
Sunju Cho in the FD3 SRX7 did not make it out of Fuji last round. He's coming up pretty quick here. He's going to have to get on the brakes. He does. And as he leaves that first outside zone, pretty good job on that inside clip. Gets out to the wall, but modulating the throttle to try to move his way to that final outside zone. Now full throttle. Oh, no! Oh! And he makes contact with the wall right before the opening to that big ravine going down. You can see how tough that wall is, sustaining that hit there from Sunju Cho. And Ryan, he narrowly escaped that, but just missed it. That that very much reminds me of some of the stuff we were watching last night. Let's take a look at this run again. It won't matter anything that you're watching here except for this last part as he heads towards the final inside clip.
It was a decent run overall. It was looking pretty solid, and he just went a little too wide from outside zone 3. Tapped the wall. That'll be minimal damage. The taillight popped out. A couple of superficial things fell off the car, really. But overall, I think the car will be totally fine after that hit. It'll just need to be straightened in the rear there for aesthetic purposes. But performance-wise, the car will be totally fine. But it's just unfortunate that a really good run, that would have been a solid score, I believe. It kind of got wasted there in that sense by tapping the wall like that.
All right, Daichi Mitsutani up next in the S15 Sylvia. We spent a lot of time, Ryan, talking about the kind of the tire wars going on in Formula Drift Japan. Double-digit tire manufacturers participating. Valino has kind of been the standout manufacturer this year in terms of competitive prowess, but they have really made it quite interesting to watch the tire development in this series. Much different than what we see back in the States, much more regimented back in the States with what can be applied. But it is certainly fun to watch what they've been doing over here in Japan, and it gives us a little bit of a different approach to how they think about their tire development, and all the manufacturers that are involved have been pretty good for drivers overall, I think. And we see a big diversity from Dunlop to Bridgestone, the Valino guys, a few Chinese tire manufacturers.
Yeah, Zeknova, and we were calling it the Wild East.
Yes, the Wild Wild East.
Yes.
Car 963, and as you said, Zeknova being represented here. Daichi Mizutani, here we go. Run number 1, we've seen some crazy-ish so far. Let's see how he manages his first outside zone. Not too shabby, but pulls off a bit early. Front wheels are moving around a little bit as he sizes up this second outside zone. He's going to be on the inside. Getting into this final outside zone right up against the wall. Plays it pretty tentatively. He's got big angle there, and another adjustment from the front wheels as he rips it through the finish line. Everybody's on edge here so far, Ryan. We've seen some good scores, but a couple big crashes, and it seems even after 4 hours of practice, some of these drivers are still kind of getting used to the setup.
Well, a lot of times it's competition, nerves that get to the drivers. Could be doing great in practice, and then you get into the competition side of things, and it falls apart a little bit. Overall, this Mizutani here is making it through the course, just not as precisely as we'd like to see. The angle could be a lot higher, the line could be more accurate, and the commitment side of things could definitely be a little bit higher as well. But got in the general areas, I think the score is going to suffer, as you can see there. 67 overall for Mizutani.
All right, so probably a throwaway for him, though it's on the upper end of kind of the lower scores that we've seen. Get into the top 32. We'll send our next batch of drivers as we see one of the more talked about drivers this year. He hasn't been able to make it out to all the rounds, unfortunately, though he has wanted to. But car number 96, Matthew Hill in that S15. Matthew, one of our, I think, the lone driver from New Zealand. Mm-hmm. And trying to make it into the top 32. Had a pretty decent showing in Fuji, but definitely wants to get up on that podium. Let's see how he does here in his first run. Ripping down the front straight. He's going to throw it sideways early, right at that second standing cone. On that flick, pretty good smooth line being drawn to that inside clip. Just taps it, however, midline on that second outside zone, left a few points on the table there. He's got good angle coming down the hill, nice throttle control, and a really good inside clip to finish things up. So left a couple points on the table there. He could have been deeper in outside zone too, but this should be a pretty good run for him to build on overall for run number 1.
Yep, looks like he made a pretty good job of outside zone 1. Did a nice line through there for sure. Did hit that inside clip pretty aggressively though. That'll be a couple point deduction there. Didn't quite go all the way out in outside zone 3. Pretty good job in outside zone, 2. Pretty good in outside zone 3, and then could have been a little bit tighter on that inside clip. But overall, a decent run for run number 1 for him. I'm sure there'll be some deductions from the angle side of things though. So if you look from the overhead view here, you can see that the angle is pretty well set through there, but does get a little too tight on that inside clip. And then we're looking at the movement of the car, right? Is it staying at angle or is it bobbling around a lot? There's a slight deduction there, but that does happen a lot in that area. And then a nice consistent amount of angle from zone 3 through to the finish.
85 is our top score so far, being held right now by car 111, and Matty Hill is going to fall just 1 point short, but he's going to be up there in second place. A great job for him. Tons of his friends and family watching online, rooting him on, and it's a good first run overall. He'll lock in 84. And this was the showstopper of last round. Kodai Sobogiri in that R31. Ryan, you talked a little bit about it and some of the fan base up here and the development of these vehicles, their popularity. This is the only one in competition. Here we go. Had a good showing in Fuji. Let's see what he can do here. Nice snap. He's got a lot of speed, but he gets on the brakes, times it pretty well there. Nice, smooth arc up until that point. He had to let it float out. He's going to be a bit on the inside of that second outside zone. Didn't get into it in the right place. But he is ripping through this last section of the course, hits that final inside clip, and unwinds it. So put us in a really puckering position on that initiation, but was able to brake properly and not go into the wall. Ryan, your analysis here on run number 1.
Yeah, he gave us a few pucker moments in practice where he went up and tapped the foam blocks. So he definitely is not scared to throw that car around. He did miss outside zone 1 quite a bit. Could have been deeper there. Could have been deeper in zone 2. You could see he got into it near the end, but in the beginning definitely did not get close. Outside zone 3, good job there, and not too bad on inside clip number 2, crossing the finish line.
All right. So Kodai Sobogiri in that R31 as we take a look at the drone shot here. Couple pretty mid-level mistakes, especially leaving that first inside clip. He kind of snapped it around a little bit too early and did not get into the second outside zone in the right place. So leaving a few points on the table there, but a lot of people rooting for him to do well. Try to continue on from Fuji. Let's see what the score comes in here. For Sobogiri, an 81. So not too shabby. An 81 on his first run. He'll lock that in, and he'll get ready for run number 2. Just about halfway to the halfway point, as it looks like our next driver up should be Akihiko Hiroshima. New body kit this round, car number 67 in that S15 Sylvia. Here's his first run. Leaves the gate, rockets up there with that big wing. Slow roll initiation. Into outside zone 1, comes up a little bit short. Let's see how he does in this inside clip. Second hash mark there. It's a little bit of a slower transition. He's on the inside. He's got to get back on throttle here to reach to this outside zone. A little bit better job there. Now he's carrying a lot of speed coming down the hill. He will hit that inside clip. So first half of the course, a little lackadaisical and seemingly slow, missing a few key areas of the course, but the second half kind of turned it up a little bit as we take a look at the replay one more time.
Yeah, he did not look very committed through this run. He looked very tentative, very cautious. You can see the rotations are pretty slow and controlled. He's not going to big angle right away. He's letting the car get to a certain amount and then slowly adding more. It just looked like it was conservative. It could be a little bit more aggressive on the style side of things. Online, did miss a couple of areas. Outside zone 1 could have been deeper. So like you said a minute ago, definitely leaving some points on the board.
Akihiko Hiroshima locking a 73. He'll want to get a better score than that for run number 2. So the good ride driver will go back to the pit area and prepare for a second run. Jun Jie Yamamoto is our next driver up. We had about 4 RX-7s in Fuji, and I think we've got an equal amount here at this round as well.
We're missing the FC3S that I loved so much in Fuji, but we do have 4 RX-7 FD3Ss.
Here we go. Yamamoto, big initiation. He's going deep. Got the timing right, used good braking, got to that inside clip. Good snap back around. This is looking pretty solid here. Midline comes off outside zone 2 a little bit early. Oh, he has to unwind some angle. And it looks like he understeers there. An understeer there at the transition from outside zone 3 to inside clip 1. Let's take a look at this again. That run was looking pretty solid. He did leave outside zone 2 early, but I think the judges are really going to be taking a look at what happened when he left outside zone 3. Ryan, walk us through what you guys are looking at here.
Yeah, I was watching the very same thing in practice from him earlier. As he comes around to outside zone 3, the car just runs out of steam. He goes straight and then has to reinitiate. So it's not ideal through that area. I'd say it's chaseable, but it's not drifting through the entire course.
So the judges will come to a agreement here on whether or not that is going to be an incomplete. It was a bit of an opposite drift, but much more mild than we've typically seen, so they may give a low score for it in that particular sector. But
so watch at the front wheels, Ryan. He had to actually reinitiate the car. He had to turn into he kind of had to turn into the drift to get the car to reinitiate, and that's what's coming down to what's coming for us. That's what's really proving that he had to reinitiate, and we're going to have to incomplete him, unfortunately, for that.
All right, so what started off as a pretty good run results in an incomplete. That little mistake there, the opposite drift in, having to reinitiate just too much for the judges to give it a scored run. So he'll have to take some of the high points of that first qualifying run and build on it for run number 2, but with a bit more pressure this time around. So there it is, official.
Yeah, typically we'll allow a driver to straighten up slightly if they're on throttle and the car just runs out of steam a little bit, loses angle, but is able to get back, on throttle, let's say, and bring the back of the car back out. But in this case, the car straightened, went fully square to 0, and he had to basically reflick the car to reinitiate it. So that is kind of our standard for what is considered a major straightening.
Shinichi Yumura, our next driver up. Gets a bit on the inside of that first outside zone after what looked to be a very tentative initiation. Better on that inside clip. Trying to draw a good line here. He is going to fill that second outside zone much better than we've seen. Now trying to get back on throttle, that final outside zone in the inside clip. Coming up a bit tight. He's pushing wide there and unwinds the car a little bit later than you usually see. That finish line is just about 35 feet or about 10 meters, 10 and a half meters after that final inside clip, and that's when the drivers are told to unwind the vehicle. So he came flying through that finish line there. Ryan, tell us about this run.
Another driver looking tentative throughout the run. You can see that transition was stepped. It wasn't a nice, smooth, snappy rotation. Trying to be a little bit safer, it seems like, through the run. And right here, as he's coming through to inside clip 2 near the finish line, not really on the right line because it shoots him out really wide just before the finish line there, which is not what we're looking for. The lines that are painted on the ground at inside clip 1, the driver should travel past those lines in the direction that the lines are painted.
All right, so the score coming in at a 73. You can see where the deductions were taken for all 3 judges. You will want to improve on that for run number 2. But starting to see a relative bank of consistency here amongst some of the drivers. We do have quite a few incompletes, including the notable incomplete that put us on a pause for a second there as we had a track cleanup with Hubert Lee and James Ting. But we will keep moving along. Hidehiko Sujita, our next driver up, C33 Laurel. First, second, third, he's coming into initiation. He snaps it right past that third standing cone. Comes off the zone just a tiny bit early. He's going to need to get back on throttle here. Not a big smoke line developing, but moving through the course, keeping the car at angle. Now starting to slow down, losing that momentum there. And you got to think about the chase driver here. Oh, he almost unwinds it before the finish line there pretty dramatically. So not coming into the course with a lot of aggression, just trying to make it around. And we'll see how the judges treat that overall as we take a look at this replay one more time.
Yeah, he wasn't super accurate on this run. A lot of things were missed. Outside zone 1, he wasn't very good there. You can see he was at the first hash mark on inside clip 1. Outside zone 2, nowhere near the wall. Stall up right there, so the fluidity and the commitment are going to be dinged throughout those 2 sections of the course. And then coming through to the finish line was off inside clip number 2. So definitely leaving some points on the board there. Could have tightened it up and widened the run up while tightening up the actual transitions and driving of the car.
Hidehiko Sujita in that C33 Laurel will lock in a 67. As you see in the background there, the next group of drivers heading down into the hot pit area, and they will prepare for their first runs. See a few notes in my list here. It looks like our next driver up should be Masakazu Hoshi in the Pieceworks RDS Racing Velino S15 Silvia. Have not seen him come into the line yet. There was a little asterisk here next to his name. Don't know if that means that he was tentative. I do see an OK there. But we do know that Tetsuya Iha, the driver following him, is out of competition. So the GRS 204 Crown will not be making it into competition. It's the only one that we have here this weekend. And if you've watched the program before, you would certainly know that car, so that is unfortunate. But I think I see Hashi there in the background, getting ready to come up to the line. We move the drivers down there in about groups of 3 or 4, so they can make preparations. We will move the hot pit down to that area of the competition for tomorrow for top 32 and top 16. But too many drivers to be down there for qualifying, so we allow them to go back to the hot pits. Here he is, Masakazu Hoshi, car number 84, the Pieceworks RDS Racing Velino S15 Silvia, our next driver up. And he's off, ripping up the hill here. Snaps it right at the third. He is flying into that first corner, getting deep into that zone. And wow, that was scary, but a good job of braking there. Looks like he's got this course on lock so far into that second outside zone. He stays deep, pulls off the wall here, and making quick overall driving through that course was Masakazu Hoshi. Ryan, that looked like he was going into the wall for sure, but really had his braking on point there and made it look pretty clean.
Yeah, he wasn't deep initially. You can see there he's off quite a bit, but then goes very deep into the zone. So did a good job in the latter half. Nice and tight on inside clip 1. Good job there on outside zone 2. Got close to the wall and rode that line pretty well around all of outside zone 2. Pretty deep in outside zone 3, deeper than perhaps we've seen so far, and tight on inside clip number 2. So line-wise, not bad. And in terms of commitment coming up the hill, I don't think there's any question that he was committed up to initiation.
All right, so scores starting to drop here for Hashi.
Yeah, as you can see there, nice and close to that wall. This sky view, the bird's eye view, is so helpful for us. Slight bobble on angle there, but again, that seems to be happening with a lot of drivers, and pretty decent on inside clip 2 through the finish line.
And in 84, so he'll be tied for second place with Matty Hill. As we see Hashi lock in a pretty solid score for him. That'll certainly get him into the top 32. All right, our next driver up here is going to be Yasuhiro Takaki. On the Accelera tires, one of the handful of drivers using those.
Great looking car too.
Coming out of Okinawa, here we go. His first run. Excuse me. Good snap, a lot of angle. Whoa, really slows it down, and you can see he's gonna unwind the car there. So the last few drivers have really been pushing it on that initiation, and unfortunately, because of how deep he was into that zone, he had to unwind the car. That'll be an incomplete for him.
That may be our fault, Ryan. We told him in the driver's meeting that is worth 10 points for line and angle, and that's a very important area, and they need to focus on it. and maybe they're focusing on it a little too much. If what you're doing in that area is going to compromise the rest of the run, you might as well compromise a little bit there so you can complete the run, because a 0 is much worse than a lower score. As we know, sometimes those low scores can actually, and that wouldn't have been a low score there. Even if he was able to get through the rest of that run, it would have been a deduction for that area for maybe commitment, angle, if he had to pull a little bit of angle out. But overall, he would have got a score probably for that run that would have potentially put him into competition. So right now he's got a 0, and it's going to hurt.
After that second standing cone, what allowance do you give them in terms of how wide the line they draw from the last section of outside zone 1 into inside clip? Like, if he was able to get back on throttle and make that kind of flow a little bit better, would he have been fine with that?
That would have been totally fine.
As the line judge?
We're not making them go in from that point. You want to draw a nice arc from the end of the zone, and you can see some nice arc. If the camera gets over there at some point, you'll see the rubber that's, there's a nice arc from that end of the zone to the inside clip area.
Masayao Minowa, our second female, wife of Shinji, had a great Fuji event and starting off this event pretty solid here as well. She's been getting better with every single run, moving to that inside clip. She's going to tap the wall, come off a bit on the inside, damage the vehicle as she made that transition into that second outside zone. And she's going to come in a bit tight on that final inside clip. So Masayao Minowa, in her first run of the day, making contact with the wall at outside zone 2.
Yeah, that was pretty aggressive, Ryan. I think that was pretty, I guess aggressive is the right word. She could have been deeper in outside zone 1, so definitely some points left on the board there. A little bit off of inside clip 1. And right here, she's going to make a little contact with that wall that sends her offline, so she's going to miss the second part of outside zone 2. Decent on 3, and then she just taps inside clip number 2 on the way down the hill. So she's played it safe through outside zone 1, where maybe a little bit deeper there would have been helpful. And then she went a little too deep in outside zone 2, and that's going to take a few minutes to fix. But you can see there she is not too bad at the beginning of the zone, but definitely comes off of it a little bit early. Could have been tighter there. And then watch the wall tap here. It makes her miss the outside zone entirely, unfortunately, because she hit it a little bit earlier, right at the beginning of the zone, so it wasn't ideal.
All right, so scores starting to come in here as we wait to see what Masayao Minowa drops on run number 1. Final judge putting their score in. And it's going to be a 71. So probably not enough, but we will see as now we are halfway through the lineup. And our next driver up is going to be Koji Kitagawa in the FD3S RX7. Here we go, run number 1 for him. Running on Federals. Here he comes. Big, he doesn't get to it, but kind of finally throws the initiation there, but it was quite a bit late. Looked like he was going for a big flick, but then does not have the commitment. Kind of playing hide and seek there with that initiation. Let's see how he does the rest of the course. Decent job on the inside clip and outside zone 2 and 3, but he's going to go a bit wide there. And Ryan, it just seems like he didn't really get the initiation that we were expecting or that perhaps he wanted as we take a look at this replay.
Yeah, this is a vital area of the track. If the initiation was poor enough to impede if there was a chase driver in that area, but it looks like it flowed well enough through there. Definitely not accurate, though. Not too bad on zone 3. Didn't do terrible through that area, but just a lack of angle and commitment throughout the run entirely. So I think there'll be some deductions from those two judges for sure.
So Ryan, as always, you're doing a double and triple duty here. We've got you commentating and also you're judging, and so part of what that entails is writing down all your scores and talking to us at the same time. So as you break down this run here, we see from Kitagawa a couple major mistakes. The initiation was a bit wonky, but he was able to get it to angle before the last standing cone, which is basically the final arbiter of whether or not that the initiation would be judged. But he did go wide at inside clip, the final inside clip, and you can see he paid a price for it there heavily on line, only half of the line score. So it'll be a 61 for him. That'll be a definite throwaway. Right now, our highest score out of qualifying so far after half of the drivers is an 85, and that belongs to Ryohei Kitao in that C33 Laurel. Let's move on to a car that pretty much everybody knows here. Tomoyuki Kitashiba into his qualifying run. He initiates, gets to that outside zone, leaves it, hits that inside clip, back on throttle, or increasing the throttle rather, as he leaves that final outside zone. So not really cutting up the course, but just kind of piecing it together, trying to keep it as smooth as possible. The Sunoco Goodyear driver in the 86, very familiar. We saw him compete in that parking battle with Frederick Osbo and a few other drivers at Fuji. Ryan, what did you make of run number 1 here from Kitashiba?
Pretty good run overall. A couple little bobbles here and there. The line was pretty solid. Could have been slightly more accurate on the inside clips, especially inside clip 2. But I think the score will be a keeper. We'll see what happens here. Let me put my score in, actually.
100 points possible, 40 for style, 30 for each line and angle. And it is a 73, so mid-pack right now. He's probably going to want to better that in run number 2. And it looks like our next driver up, we've been alerted that is a scratch. It is Tomoki Tanaka in the Tetsujin JZX 100 Chaser. So we're going to be moving on to Daisuke Hara in the S15 on good rides. Sitting about mid-pack in the championship now. Here he goes, run number 1. He's going to go from the other side of the course, throw it in there, get to that outside zone, but come up a little bit on the inside part of the line. Much better on that inside clip. The transition to outside zone 2 brings him up to the wall. Comes off a tiny bit early, but pretty decent line to outside zone 3. You can see zone 3 is a really short part of the course there, maybe making up about 20 feet total on that outside wall. And while he did leave the outside zone 1 early, and we do have 10 points there for line and angle, it was a pretty decent run overall.
Yeah, it didn't look too bad, Ryan. Line-wise, did a pretty good job on his score there. You can see a nice flick to initiation. Was right on the line at outside zone number 1. Could have been deeper there. Should have been in the box, but was just outside of it. Good job on inside clip 1. Outside zone 2, not a bad job there on the line as well. Right up on the wall at outside zone number 3, and then just slightly off of inside clip 2. So leaving some points there on line, on accuracy. Oh, I forgot to put my score in again. Here we go. And it's in.
So waiting for scores to drop as we take a look once again at Daisuke Hara's run. You can see on that outside zone where some of the fluid was dropped there. It is pretty much now all gone, and we haven't seen any incidents there. It was mostly water, so drivers being able to enter that first outside zone with quite a bit of confidence, though we have seen quite a few close calls as well. And it looks like the score is about to come in an 82, so a pretty decent score for him. And he has been known as a pretty good qualifying driver, so he'll get himself something that he can at least probably hold on to, if not better, in run number 2. All right, here we go. The Team Hirano tire with Goodyear Racing. JZX 100 Chaser of Manki Ito. And there's our little fly in the mud right there. A high-speed drone following Ito as he goes up the hill. Midline approach, snaps it, e-brake pull, now back on throttle. Good angle here. Hits that inside clip, snaps it to outside zone 2. He's pushing deep into that second outside zone, bringing it back around. You can see those 2 standing cones marking outside zone 3. He'll push a little bit wide to that final inside clip, but unwinds it nice and smooth through the finish line there for Manki Ito.
high score in a couple of areas, but a pretty low score in a couple of other areas for the line side of things. You can see here outside zone 1, pretty good job of getting in the beginning of it, but left it a little bit early, so that's going to be deduction there. Inside clip number 1 was really solid there. Off of outside zone 2, outside zone 3 did a pretty good job, but way off of inside clip number 2 on the way down the hill. So definitely left some points on the line side anyway.
All right, so scores starting to come in here for Ito. As Ryan puts his score in, you can see from above there, there's the stream that they drive over twice, once coming into the course, once leaving the course. And this is right there at outside zone 3 as we see drivers really get on throttle, and this is where the head-to-head action tends to really come to a head there, especially in some of the latter rounds as drivers are really pushing. And we will be setting ourselves up for a great competition tomorrow. 79 for Maki Ito. Not too shabby, but probably going to be right there at the end of the day from what we've seen so far historically. 333, one of 2 AE85s, Tomonori Tasaka, the droopy team. He's our first driver up. Let's see how they manage this. In the Trueno. Lots of gear shifting, snaps it right into that outside zone. Pretty good job there. He's going to get back on throttle early. He's going to initiate through that inside clip, but he's going to be on the inside. Improper line on outside zone 2. Little bit of front wheel movement, but now flying down the hill. Stays off the throttle for a second there as he realized he was overshooting that final inside clip. So some high marks in some areas and definitely some areas of improvement, including outside zone 2, as we take a look at the run one more time.
Yeah, coming up to initiation, I didn't do a bad job in outside zone 1. There was a weird hesitation here as he was getting to outside zone number 2, and you can see that it hurt him because he wasn't able to fill that zone. And then there was like a little hesitation after it. And then coming down the hill, like you said, Ryan, there was a lift there at the inside clip, but I think it was probably, as you said, trying to not overshoot too aggressively, but still got a deduction on line there as he was past the 3 hash mark, the 3rd hash mark on the ground.
It's a 74 for Tomonori Tasaka, and we are getting our halfway point commercial break. So grab some food, grab some drinks, head to the bathroom. We'll do a 3-minute commercial break. We'll head right back to the G-Shock Presents Formula Drift Japan Championship. This is round 4 at OKUIBUKI Ski and Snowboard Park. We'll be back with the first run, remainder of qualifying. Ryan, WNBC. G-Shock Presents Formula Drift Japan Championship round 4 at the OKUIBUKI Ski and Snowboard Park. Just finishing up a nice peach haichu as we are now more than halfway through our first run in qualifying, and it's certainly getting sweet. Ryan Lantain.
It's very sweet.
We've got our next batch of drivers down in the hot pit, ready to go. It looks like our next driver up. There's about 17 more until we get down to our top 3. Just above 50 drivers here this weekend, trying to find those 32 spots. It's going to be Kenji Yamada in the S15, Sylvia, our next driver up. The lone next entire driver here this weekend. Here we go on his first rip of the afternoon. Great conditions here at OKUIBUKI. Snaps it into the outside zone. He's drawn a pretty decent line, back on throttle. Good angle through that first inside clip. Managing to get into that second outside zone, but he's going to be a little bit deep there. He taps the exit cone. Outside zone 3. Low angle there, but he's able to find the right line to that final inside clip. Oh! He gets a little bit wild there past the finish line. As we take a look at this run again, car number 888, Kenji Yamada, laying down a pretty solid run in run number 1.
Yeah, it looked like a pretty frantic run. You know, watching it live here, it looked like he was on throttle, fast, throwing the car around, so it looked pretty solid. Did a good job on most of the zones, went a little bit long on outside zone number 2, decent on 3, and then pretty tight on that inside clip on the way down the hill. So overall, pretty solid run. Like you said, he had a little fun there down the hill.
All right, so waiting for scores to drop as we take a look at one more time another perspective here of Kenji Yamada. There's no question we will certainly see these runs get better and better as we inch our way towards the top drivers. One of the drivers we've been talking a lot about this season, Ryan, obviously one of the more well-known original Japanese drifters of Katsuhiro Ueno, currently sitting in 4th place right now with his Autobots looking, no, Batman. Was that what we said?
Batman.
And the Batmobile S15. It's an 83 for Kenji Yamada, a good start for him. That should do it. So that'll give him a bit of a relief going into run number 2. As we'll be moving on to another familiar face here, the perfect style S15 of Yuichi Amagai. Light drops and he's ready to go. He's taking that outside line, now going over near the wall, snaps it back around, gets into that outside zone at the right point, drives it all the way through. Good smooth line, little bit more angle there, maybe at inside clip 1. And just on the inside line of outside zone 2, bit of a hiccup there as we see quite often on that outside zone 3, but quickly managed to get through the course. And he seems pretty hyped up about that, a full straight line burnout down past the finish line for Yuichi Yamagai.
Looked like a pretty good run, Ryan. I think he had a good amount of commitment throughout the run. You can see here the line was pretty solid through outside zone 1. Coming inside clip 1, really tight on that. Didn't do a bad job through outside zone number 2. Could have been a little bit deeper there. And then angle-wise, pulled out a little bit going to outside zone 3. But line-wise, I think this is a pretty solid run. Should get a decent score.
All right, so Amagai looking and performing with a pretty high level of confidence here in this course. He's going to get right there just below the typical cutoff mark that we see around 79.80 with a 79. And our next driver up is going to be car 938, Yusuke Kusaba, on Potenzas in that 86. The Bridgestone driver leaves the line. Straight line approach here. He's going to e-brake it in. Big e-brake pull there, slows the momentum down, but now he's back on throttle. Over to outside zone 2, he's way on the inside. He's going to have to push out wide here to get to outside zone 3. And you can really see the tires moving with that paint that he has on the wheels, or on the tires rather. It really gives you an idea of when the throttle control is being manipulated appropriately. It looks like he had outside zone 1 pretty dialed there, but then started making a few little mistakes. Let's take a look at this run one more time.
Could have been more accurate. He made some big mistakes on the line side of things. On outside zone 1 looked amazing. He had a full 10 points there. He was right on that line on the outside. Did a great job, but then really missed outside zone number 2. Low angle there through outside zone 3. And okay at the inside clip number 2 area, but just it's outside zone number 2 there where he could have done much better. He was way on the inside, left some solid points on the board there. So see what the score comes up as a 79.
Back-to-back 79s here as we're starting to see more regularity in the scores as we make our way down the lineup here. Our second Accelera driver is Yoshiya Isaki in the S15. And we are cruising smoothly now after a troublesome start with a few big crashes.
Watch yourself, Ryan.
Oh, knock on wood. He gets to that outside zone, leaves it a tiny bit early, but he's on throttle through this inside clip. Good transition back around. He tries to let it float out, and he's able to fill that zone. He's going to be wide here at outside zone 3, right up against the wall. Big angle. He's flying down the hill and manages to unwind it pretty smoothly. We're really starting to see drivers get aggressive, and no surprise after a 4-hour practice yesterday in variable conditions, drivers coming out and throwing it down in this first run. Let's take a look at it. Ryan, what was your thoughts there?
My thoughts were that he did a pretty good job through the run. Pretty accurate on line. You could see nice and close to that wall right there. Overall, pretty good job. Angle-wise, suffered definitely through this area here, outside zone 3. Could have been closer, or sorry, less close to the wall, but with more angle. And maybe if he had taken a little bit of angle out, the car could have had more angle. Changed his line a little bit, been a little bit more inside. The car could have had more angle through that area. Unfortunately, he got really close to the wall, and it looks like he pulled angle out so that he wouldn't make too much contact with the wall there. and it's going to hurt him on this the angle score for sure.
Yep, there it was. All right, so a couple little mistakes to improve on for run number 2, but he will have a score. Let's see where it comes in for car number 448, Yoshiya Isaki. It's a 77, so that's going to be right at that threshold. 85 is still our highest score of the afternoon. Happened early on in qualifying. Got a couple 84s, a handful of 82s, and one 83, and a bunch of high 70s. Yoshitaka Ogane, our third RX-7 of the afternoon. It won't be the last. Here he goes, car number 77, taking the first run. Snaps it, big angle here, and he's going to fill that zone, but he's going to come up on a tight line. He's still able to manipulate around. Throws big angle into outside zone 2, has a bit of a hiccup there. Slight punctuation in the throttle as he moves from the outside zone 3 into that final inside clip. Ends up being tight there. Takes it out, and man, that car is loud, reverberating off of the enclosure of the granite walls that we have all around us here. Ryan, his first run, Ogane, a veteran that we see in the FD Japan Championship. What did you think about his run number 1?
Well, I was liking him in practice. He was looking very confident. I think this run was not up to par with what we've seen from him in practice. He's done some pretty solid runs. He left some of the zones a little bit early, so outside zone 2 for sure. Could have been deeper in that and filled it more throughout its length. And I think that the score will suffer overall because of some of the corrections that he made. Another 77.
So 77 for Ogane. As we prepare for our next driver here. Should be Takatoshi Imamaeda in the S14. See somebody down there at the line. And there he is.
Is that a tire brand?
55X.
Racing Compound Tires. Huh.
Well, here we go. His first run, midline approach. Snaps it. A little bit on the inside of outside zone 1. He's going to be on a tight line here. He's going to hit that inside clip. Throws it back around. Better on outside zone 2, but still on the inside portion of that painted line. So really driving fast through the course, but leaving a few line points on the table there. And tying to that maybe a little bit of angle as well in areas where he could have just maxed it out a bit more. Let's take a look at the replay one more time here from Takatoshi Imamaeda, car number 145.
Looking at outside zone number 1, did not fill it. He was right on that the line essentially on the inside of it. So a bit of a deduction there. Hit inside clip 1, not fully wide on outside zone number 2 either. Outside zone 3, it looks like he got relatively close to the wall, but definitely a few feet off. We've seen closer, put it that way. Inside clip 1, not too bad. So going to be a couple of deductions there for him.
And another 77, so 3 77s in a row. And as you said, Ryan, he paid a bit of a price there on line, losing 1/3 of the overall score. 30 points each for line and angle, 40 for style. Style making up fluidity and commitment, so very important aspect of qualifying. And this is Tadahiro Fukada in the JZX 100 Mark II on Dunlops. A staple figure in FDJ. And trying to make his way into the top 10. He's got 2 events left to do it. Fukada, slow roll initiation, but the line looks pretty much on point. He's going to have a little bit of a hiccup leaving outside zone 1, but as he gets into outside zone 2, he's going to fill that thing completely. Pushing to outside zone 3, makes that slight adjustment there. Not a lot of tire smoke, but he's still moving through the course with a pretty good amount of speed and momentum. And that might have been one of the better jobs we've seen filling outside zone 1. Let's take a look at this one more time as car number 38 finishes his run.
Outside zone 2 is well done as well. You know, really good. We don't look at the cone hits there because they're right on the edge of the track. So as long as your tire is in the box, you're good. And he was. Look at outside zone 2, right on the line. Did a great job there as well. Some pretty solid driving from Fukada here. It looked confident, looked composed throughout the course. Wasn't frantic or making any mistakes. So I think it should be a decent score.
And you can see Fukada there in the background making his way to the public paddock. It's an 81, so it's not going to be our top score, but it's certainly going to be right above the margin for him as we start sending out our next group of drivers, our second droopy car, as well as one of our other S14s. But up next should be Tetsuya Kume, the MCR factory on Velino. He is sitting at the line, getting ready to drive uphill. And looks like he's going to be getting the signal any second here, and he does. So here we go. Run number 1, Tetsuya Kume. Midline moves it over to the outside part of the wall, snaps it to the other side of the course. Pretty good job on outside zone 1, keeping the throttle on and cruising through that inside clip. Nice flick back around, catches it into outside zone 2. And drawing a nice smooth line, does not pull a lot of angle out there. Keeps it on very close to that outside wall. And certainly getting some appreciative nods from people up here, as well as the spotter stand. Well, let's take a look at this run one more time, Ryan, and let us know what he did well and what he could improve on here for run number 2.
High scoring run from the Lied side of things. Only a point knocked off on outside zone 1. Nice and tight on inside clip 1. Look at this, right on the wall for outside zone 2. Riding the line as well. Going to outside zone 3. Not pulling a lot of angle out and getting pretty close to that wall. And just slightly off inside clip 2 as he comes down the hill. So car looks settled, looked controlled. Didn't look like he was having any problems getting through the course. So I think his score should be pretty decent and pretty reflective of the run that he just had.
An 85, and that'll tie him for first place. So getting the job there on run number 1 from Tetsuya Kume. Getting closer to the top 10 drivers now. Our next driver up should be Manabu Fujinaka in the good ride vehicle, the FD3S RX-7, and it is, here he is. So this is the last and final RX-7 that we will see before we switch things up. And he's off. The good ride driver leaving the line. Moving from one side of the course to the next. A good snap there, fills it. Oh, and gets into the wall, but he's going to keep going. He pushes off of the foam blocks, gets into that second outside zone. Really aggressive, impressive driving, but just pushed over that line a little bit on that first outside zone. Now remember, that zone itself is worth 10 points from line and angle, and of course there's fluidity and commitment there, so you will see a deduction, but he decided to finish the run, and looks like the judges are going to score it here. Ryan, what do you think about that incident there at outside zone 1?
Certainly a lot of commitment. Look at him getting a little bit long there, reduced angle through that section, so fluidity is going to hurt, angle is going to hurt. But in terms of getting through the course, managed to not really skip a beat other than that one mistake he made there. Corrected the angle, got back on throttle, and continued through the run, and only lost a couple of points throughout.
So good on him for finishing the run. He will receive those deductions in outside zone 1 for probably all 3 categories. But as we take a look at it again, certainly very well committed, and thankfully for us and fans, he stayed in it there and didn't give up on the run. So the blocks saving him there, but he was able to finish off this run, and it seemed like it didn't faze him too much.
Yeah, he salvaged the run. That could have easily been a throwaway there. He could have gone off throttle and really tried to conserve the car, but he was lucky. The foam block didn't drag him in. He just kind of rolled around it and kept going.
So it's a 74. Probably not a keeper, but at least he'll have a backup score for a tiebreaker. As we get to our second Team Droopy driver, Kazuki Hayashi. Car number 33 also participating in our parking contest at Fuji. which was pretty fun to watch. It's up online if you want to check it out. Hayashi initiates e-brake pull. Nice line drawn to outside zone 1. Good fluidity, a bit long on that first inside clip. Much better back around as he hits that second outside zone about midline there. Really good fluidity through the third outside zone and just a tiny bit long on that final inside clip. But overall, a very well-managed run there from Kazuya Kazuki Hayashi.
Close enough.
Yeah, I knew I was messing that up. So Ryan, here we go. Let's take a look at his run. I mean, very well done on that first outside zone.
Yeah, great line through outside zone 1. A little bit off inside clip 1. Could have been deeper in outside zone 2 here, but car looks settled, controlled, not making a lot of corrections. Maybe added a bit more angle there as he finished outside zone 3 and was kind of off inside clip 1 a little bit. But overall, pretty decent run from him.
And it's worth noting and reminding everybody that's following along as Kazuki Hayashi drops an 81 that the scoring is broken up into sectors. So you can do really bad in one section of the course, like we saw with Manabu Fujinaka, and still salvage the run.
Yeah, the scoring is very compartmentalized, not only in the different criteria. You know, line, if you do well there, but your poor angle, the line isn't affected by that, and vice versa.
Right.
And also, different sections of the track don't affect the rest of the overall score.
Tomohiro Murayama, S14, the big wing, deep, and he's going to have to pull some angle out of it. He's going to be tight on this inside clip. So another driver going really hard into that first outside zone, has to make an adjustment. Now he looks like he's kind of getting back on it here. Slight adjustment in the wheels through that final inside clip, but gave us another pucker moment there on that first outside zone. Let's take a look at it one more time here as we go to the replay. As a Dunlop driver trying to make his way into the top 32.
Good job on outside zone 1. Like you said, went really long there. Probably dropped a point just because he went off of it before the end. Hit inside clip 2, a couple point deduction there every time he hit an inside clip. And then not too bad through outside zone 2. Definitely dropped some angle right there as he was approaching outside zone 3, so the angle judge will be getting him on that. And then wasn't as tight as he could be on inside clip number 2, but made it through the course. Should get a score that should get him into the show.
So 50 some odd drivers being whittled down to 32. As we take a look at Murayama one more time. Have not seen a score go above 85. We've got 2 drivers that have scored that so far. Tatsuya Kume.
Pretty confident this score will not go over 85 either.
This score?
That's this score right here that we're looking at. Yeah, this there were some hesitations there. Fluidity, commitment are going to hurt.
And it's a 75. So mid-pack score. And he will move on to run number 2. All right, here's our second Torreno. Kazuya Matsukawa. The 3-car droopy team made up of 2 AE85s and 1 86. New model, new version. There he is. His teammate had a little bit of trouble there with that outside zone number 1, as we've seen quite a few drivers. Let's see how he can manage it here. Matsukawa flying up the hill, manages speed pretty well, and he gets out of that zone with a great arc through that inside clip. Back around to that outside zone. He's just on the inside of the line, pushing out wide here. Big throttle as he leaves that third outside zone, flying down the hill. He'll be on that second hash mark through the finish line and unwind it pretty smoothly there. So managed to carry a lot of speed uphill, but was able to use the angle of the car and good break into that first outside zone to make it look like it had some pretty good high risk without making a big mistake in the overall speed.
Yeah, looked like he was pretty accurate on outside zone 1. Not as deep as he could have been on zone 2. Zone 3 here, you can see a slight deduction in angle, and then he pours it on afterwards, and could have been slightly tighter on inside clip number 2. So not terrible, but not as accurate as he could have been through a lot of the course.
And an 82 for Kazuya Matsukawa. So that is going to be right above the threshold. Good job there from him. And you're hearing our next batch of drivers. That right there is Katsuhiro Ueo.
What a wild man, Ryan. Can't even get out of the staging area without spinning out because he's just on throttle fully everywhere all the time. I love watching him drive.
And potentially on purpose, I would say as well.
Yeah, that's also true. Also possible. He's a pretty crazy guy. Sometimes he can throw together some insane runs when he can hold it together while being so wild. And it's sort of, he's unpredictable out there on the track. He's been driving for a very long time at a very high level. So for him, following cars very closely, he's adapted to that very well.
Jin Harino, our next driver up. Good snap from him into initiation. Really pushing wide there. He does have to hold up a little bit, but still drawing a good line through that first inside clip. Beautiful snap back around to outside zone 2. Very fluid. And pushing to outside zone 3, coming now down the hill, hitting that final inside clip and putting together a very respectable run. Made that slight mistake in outside zone 1 look pretty decent, but after that first inside clip and the transition to outside zone 2 was very smooth and fluid.
Yeah, this looked like a very solid run, Ryan. He's doing a great job in outside zone. Only lost 1 point there. Really tight on clip 1, so no points lost there. Right here, he started off really strong. Ended up not quite in the box at the end of that zone, so dropped a point there. Decent on that wall. And then coming up to inside clip number 2, not as tight as he could have been, but overall the fluidity of the run, the car looked really settled. The driver looked very comfortable, so I think it should be a pretty good score for him.
All right, so Jin Harino in the S15, 89. He is going to be your new current leader, just shy of 90. And we're starting to see the standard go up. A great job for him. That'll certainly be a keeper, and he's going to be happy about that. And we will quickly move along to our next driver, the young Kanta Yanaguida. Had an early exit in Fuji, dropped down the championship standings quite a bit. Let's see what he can do here. He's had some success at this track. The Top Tool Racing Volino support driver initiates, gets to that outside zone, but he's going to come off a bit early, looking tentative here. This is not the typical Kanta. Now getting more in the groove, much better on that second outside zone. Switching to the 2J, giving himself more power this year in that chassis. And it looked like it served him well, but he'll leave a few points on the table there on that first outside zone. But the second half looked much more typical of the quality that we see from him.
Looking at his initiation, did a good job getting the car to angle. Could have been quicker, but did not fill outside zone 1. Missed that quite a bit. Just tapped inside clip 1, so great job there. Coming around to zone number 2, good job filling the zone there. Had the car planted right in the right spot, and then may have had to pull a bit of angle out beyond it. So there'll be a slight deduction on that one.
So taking a look from above here, Ryan, this is where you docked him for that outside zone, coming off a little bit early there.
Yeah.
And much better around on this second outside zone.
Yeah, he didn't lose any points on that zone there. He got full points for that one. And coming through to inside clip number 2, was pretty tight on it, so it did pretty well there as well in score.
And an 81 for Kanta Yanaguida, so the Volino driver will have a keeper on run number 1, but looking to improve on run number 2 as we have now moved into the top 10 here.
There's only 9 drivers left in this part of the qualifying session right now, the first run, so motoring along quite nicely here, Ryan.
Now we are. Kazuhiro Kubo. The S13. Middle of the course. Wow.
That was nice.
Bit of a manji there. He gets to that outside zone, swings wide, hits that inside clip. Pretty good job there. Nice snap back around, keeps the tires moving forward with good throttle control. Tries to get deep into that outside zone. keeps the angle pretty locked up here, and he'll pass through that final inside clip right on that inside hash mark. And looks like a good start there for Kazuhiro Kubo.
So let's look at outside zone 1, Ryan. Did he get in early? I love the flick. It was a nice initiation. Was not as deep as he could have been at the beginning, but got deeper into it as he went through. So pretty decent there. Nice on inside clip 1. Nice and smooth around the zone here. Lost a point there because he wasn't quite as deep as he could have been. Same thing for the wall right here. And then inside clip number 1 did a pretty good job. Or sorry, inside clip number 2.
So taking a look on from the drone perspective, definitely see all the nuance and that Manji initiation seemingly serving him well. Some people love it, some people hate it. Leaves a few points on the table there in that second outside zone. And as we see with a lot of drivers, just a little reduction in angle, leaving that third outside zone, which is really challenging part of the course. But it's an 82 nonetheless, so he'll have a keeper as well. And a great job from him on that first run of competition. Well, moving along to another very exciting driver, the Team Kazama Power Vehicles on Velino, the JZ 880 Supra of Benjamin Chiam has really been lighting it up this year. Let's see what he can do on his first run. Blazing up into initiation, snaps it. He's on the inside of the line, so he's going to be a bit tight here. He's going to have some room to make up a little bit better on outside zone 2, but he gets into it late. So really struggling a bit with the line here. Very grippy car, super fast. And the Singaporean will finish up his run with some areas on the course that he can most definitely improve. So he's got the speed and the grip, but made a few mistakes on line from what I could see in that run number 1.
Yeah, it looks like the car is a little too gripped up right now, not able to put it where he wants to put it. It has a lot of power, like you said, but he has to be on throttle for the car to be able to use the grip. Otherwise, if he's trying to let it float, it just doesn't want to float, it seems like. The car grips up and does not want to go where he's hoping it will go. So I would take a little bit of grip out of the car personally, but that's just me. Watching this overhead view here, you can see he's pretty tight on inside clip 1, was not wide on outside zone 1, and then outside zone 2, same thing, left some points there, didn't fill it very well. And through the rest of the course, you can see the car's very fast when he's on throttle. It does move quite a bit, but it looks like it's so gripped up that if he does get on throttle, the car maybe goes too fast for a lot of sections on this course. So if the car was loosened up a bit, he might be able to be more on throttle and not have the car overshoot certain areas.
So a 76 for Benjamin Chiam. And it looks like that number is actually going to drop down after the first run. We will see for sure where the cutoff is going to be. But probably the most talked about vehicle and driver thus far this year is the wide-body Helios Racing Audi A5 of Kazuya Iizuka. Looking for a podium finish this year. Has been really impressive as we've moved on into the season. Initiates, whoa! Has to pull a bit of angle out of it. You can see the punctuation in the throttle. But into that second outside zone, he gets into it early, but he leaves a little bit early as well. And this big vehicle still manipulating the course relatively well. Nasty sounding as he finishes up his run, but got a little bit held up there in outside zone 1.
This looks like another car that may be a little too gripped up. It's definitely got the power to get around this track. I just don't know if it needs that level of grip. And you can see that the car doesn't want to float either. He didn't really get it around the way you'd expect him to there from outside zone 1. And it was pretty tight, so he had to run a weird line to inside clip number 1. And you can see that it moves pretty well when he does get on throttle and it's pointed in the right direction, but it seems like it's pretty tricky to drive. It sounds like a NASCAR from our perspective over here, and very American in that sense. We're used to those loud cars in the US, but not so much here.
Well, our first driver in the top 10 that's going to drop down below the 70s into a 69, so he definitely's got some work to do. As we'll move on to one of our drivers that has very much known for huge initiations at some of the high-speed courses that we've been at this year. Fuji, Suzuka, and even Ebisu to a certain degree. Hayato Miyoshi, R34 Skyline. Smooth initiation to outside zone 1, focusing on the line here. Big sweeping line to that inside clip, and looking really solid here with the smoothness and fluidity from inside clip to outside zone to outside zone to inside clip, and finishing it up. So it looks like practice paid off for him there. He looked very calm and pretty centered in his vehicle overall. So the good ride driver looks like he logged a first run with a solid score, but let's find out from you, Ryan, what you thought about run number 1.
Yeah, outside zone 1 looked pretty strong. He went over it a little bit near the end, so he dropped a point there. Tight on inside clip 1. Great job through outside zone 2. You can see he's in the box, the tire's right on the line, looking solid. And then from here on, the angle suffered a little bit right there, and then he hit inside clip 1 pretty badly there. He kind of ran over the base, so that'll be a -2 on the line right there for him. So could have done better, but it looked pretty great overall. Just a couple of little specific things that could have been fixed.
So an 84, a very respectable score for him. And you see where the deductions came into play. Our next driver up, car number 90, just outside the top 3, currently sitting in 5th place right now. Heyman Shinji Minowa at the line. Has had some extremely eventful occurrences here at this very track. Just last year, actually. And he'll get things started here. First run of qualifying, straight line approach. He breaks into that first outside zone, back on throttle as he leaves the zone. So far, so good. Beautiful execution on that first inside clip, right up against the wall in that second outside zone. And he's pushing wide here. Let's watch the front wheel as he keeps him pretty much at angle, and he's gonna finish up strong. And lots of head nodding going on up here for Shinji Minowa, making quick work of this course and looking pretty solid along the way.
Pretty great run from my perspective, Ryan. If you look at this line that he's running, outside zone 1, gets right on that line. Beautiful job through there. Inside clip 1, super accurate. Look at that, inches away from that. Nice job on outside zone 2. Stayed in the box with his tire all the way around. And then right here, there's a slight, very slight hesitation, but does a good job on the wall and a decent job at inside clip 1 through the finish line. So for him, I believe that is my highest line score. So good for him on that, and hopefully he can keep that up through the weekend.
No surprise there, one of the top drivers in FD Japan, consistently performing at a very high level overall. Shinji Minowa, seeing it from above there, you can see the line just beautifully being drawn from inside clip to outside zone and then finishing up the inside clip. Great angle, keeping that smoke line pretty well solid. And let's see what the score comes in. An 86, so it's going to be right up there. He's going to jump into 2nd place. So Shinji Minowa doing what he needs to get done. Still have not touched the 90s yet, but certainly going to be possible with one of these next 4 drivers. Let's get to car number 15 first, the Valino ZSS Racing S15 Sylvia, the Batmobile of Katsuhiro Ueo. Has had a very solid season so far. Podiums for him, but looking for that win. Ueo, straight line burnout all the way through. First outside zone, chugging along, car bouncing around, but keeping it looking very dynamic here. Unbelievable power on display as he's throwing a huge smoke, white cloud everywhere. And now it's coming up to our end as he taps the wall, leaving that 3rd outside zone. And I would say killing it would be the proverbial word there. You can see the straight line burnout from the get-go. But Ryan, overall on execution, how do you think he did?
I think he did pretty well, Ryan. You can see he did a little slightly off outside zone 1 just at the beginning of it, but fills it pretty well otherwise. Good job through outside zone number 2. Could have been a little bit earlier into it. Taps the wall at outside zone 3, so you know he was deep in there, but it might hurt his angle score and potentially the fluidity score as well. But overall, pretty aggressive run, like we were talking about earlier. the aggressiveness is not the thing that's lacking when Ueo's driving. So you're always going to be in for a show when he's behind the wheel. And you can see there, pretty tight on inside clip 1. Could have been deeper out slightly there at the beginning of zone 2. And then right here is where he's going to tap that wall, take some angle out of the car because of it, and then it sends him on a decent line there to inside clip number 2 to the finish line.
All right, so waiting for the scores to drop here.
Scores are in, just waiting for it to come up. There you go. Angle did suffer.
And an 82 for him. All right, so not the score he wanted, but still probably enough to get him into the top 10. As we move into the top 3, Andrew Gray, car number 100, the 3-time champion, Team Kazama, Power Vehicles, running Valinos. Did not have the finish that he wanted out of Fuji. Wants to come back here. He solidified the championship here before. But right now he's focused on qualifying, and you can see the line he's drawing is very solid. Massive plume of smoke coming from his vehicle as he manages to hold enough grip to get through that final inside clip. And we are just being showered with a big smoke line generating from Andrew Gray as he shows once again that he knows what he's doing in every aspect of the game here. He's a little bit short on that first outside zone, but outside of that, Ryan, where he will leave some points on the table, what do you think about this run?
Yeah, that's a tricky spot to be leaving points on the table there. Outside zone 1 is where you want to be deep. You want to get into that zone to maximize your points. But everywhere else, he did pretty well. He only had 1 point deducted elsewhere on the course for line. So it's just unfortunate that outside zone 1 was not done as well as you'd expect from a guy like Andrew Gray. Pretty aggressive up the hill, though, burning all the way up there. Definitely committed. There's no question about that, but just needs to be more accurate with what he's doing.
And even with that, Ryan, he had that big deduction from you in line, but the style judge and the angle judge gave him big marks there, only 1 point off, and that puts him in as your new leader. So this is an example of what you talked about earlier on in competition, where you can have one big mistake, but it be compartmentalized in one area and still receive a pretty good score. And in this case, it's the number 1 qualification. Koichi Yamashita won Fuji, currently sitting second in points. His run is underway. Had a lot of great things to say after the event. He too is also going to be a little bit on the inside of outside zone 1. Massive angle on inside clip 1. Better on outside zone 2. Huge angle to outside zone 3. He keeps it in the car, flying down the hill, and he too will also carry a lot of speed in a very consistent smoke line through the finish. Is Koichi Yamashita, car number 8 in the JZX 100 Mark II.
Oddly enough, a very similar run to what Andrew Gray put together in terms of line. You can see the same mistakes, almost the exact same point on outside zone number 1. Outside of the box, did a great job, just tapped inside clip 1, just like Andrew Gray. Similar line through outside zone 2, and went pretty deep in outside zone 3 with good angle as well. So very, very similar cars, very similar driving from both of these guys on consecutive qualifying laps. So kind of odd to see, but we'll see how the overall score plays out here with the other criteria calculated in.
And an 88. So only one driver so far into the 90s. Koichi Yamashita logs an 88. So our top 2 scores have happened, our top 3 scores have happened within the past 10 runs. But be very weary of this final driver. He has come on this season in more ways than one, primarily in his head-to-head matchups. He's been our number 1 qualifier many, many times, and that is a strength for him. But after a win at Suzuka, he's gunning for a championship. He's known for big angle. This is Wataru Masuyama leaving outside zone 1 into that inside clip. Big flick back around. Right up against the wall is Masuyama. He's been talking about wanting to come to the States. You're seeing some of the driving now as he leaves that final outside zone, rips through that inside clip. Masuyama Still looks like he's on a tear in 2019.
Could have been a little bit deeper in outside zone 1, Ryan, but better than the last 2 drivers. So he's in a bit of a better position there line-wise. Coming to inside clip number 1, he just tapped it, didn't really knock it out of his box, so no real deduction there. Coming through outside zone number 2, did better there than the other 2 drivers, so got his tire in the box. Very similar in outside zone 3, and then pretty close in inside clip 1 coming down the hill.
So Matsuyama, your current points leader in the 2019 championship, with just this round and Okayama to go. This is his first run of qualifying. You can see the rubber being laid down there where the consistent patches have been. Did a better job in outside zone 1 and 2, as you said, Ryan. Lost a bit of his bumper there on that outside zone. But the smoothness of his driving, the ability to set up his vehicle has been something that he's been working so hard on, and especially in the head-to-head matchups where he really has come on strong this year. And your current leader is going to log a 90, so he's going to be tied for first place with Andrew Gray. All right, so we have finished our first run of qualifying. Our 50-plus drivers will now reset. We'll move on to run number 2. We'll take our traditional mid-time, halftime break between run 1 and run 2. We'll come back here to the G-Shock Presents Formula Drift Japan Championship. This is round number 4 at the OKUIBUKI Ski and Snowboard Park. When we come back, second run of qualifying.
実証雨に強いタイヤ横浜は濡れた路面であなたの想像以上に止まる止まる止まる日本最高グレードのウェット性能 A をあなたの車に雨に強いタイヤといえば横浜革新のカーボンベゼルBluetooth 搭載 G-SHOCK カシオThe brightness called brilliant Valenti
Quality of Japanese craftsmanship Brilliant
What's up, guys? It's Frederick Ospo, and I use RSR suspension on all my drift cars. I love RSR. Iyo RSR Ichiban.
Kenda 伝統と革新小倉クラッチのテクノロジーを凝縮チャンピオンを取るためのクラッチ小倉レーシングクラッチ ORC
Motis
The brightness called brilliant, blinding and vivid. Valenti
実証雨に強いタイヤ横浜は 濡れた路面であなたの想像以上に止まる止まる止まる日本最高グレードのウェット性能 A をあなたの車に。雨に強いタイヤといえば横浜。
革新のカーボンベゼル。Bluetooth 搭載 G-SHOCK カシオ。
The brightness called brilliant. Valenti.
クオリティオブジャパニーズクラフトマンシップグリッド。
What's up, guys? It's Frederick Ospo, and I use RSR suspension on all my drift cars. I love RSR. Iyo RSR Ichiban.
Kenda。
伝統と革新、小倉クラッチのテクノロジーを凝縮、チャンピオンを取るためのクラッチ、オグラレーシングクラッチ ORC。
モティー。
The brightness called brilliant, blinding and vivid. Valenti.